Hi guys, thanks for coming to my channel. This is where we're going to be looking at audiobooks and how we can improve what we can do and what we can learn from some of the best audiobooks in the world. And I want to let you in on a little secret. If you're not a fast reader, I'm not either. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be conquering that with audiobooks. We can listen to the audiobooks. I'll show you how, and if you have any questions, let me know. So let's get into this. I look forward to going on this journey with you. Number 2, he says, accept control, no excuses. He says when you start to think about your future, you start to take those first steps in personal strategic planning. You're making your own plan to achieve what you want to achieve, which makes you feel good. And when you feel good, you're more likely to do things. Releases serotonin. There's a lot of books that talk about this. I'm going to do a video on tiny habits. That really helps you understand how, if you're not doing what you want to do, you just need to change a certain couple of things to get there. And I'll do another video on that. So another thought experiment here is create an ideal situation of what your life looks like in 5 years' time. What do you have? Who are your friends? What do you talk about? Where do you go? What are the people around you like? What does that feel like? Who are they? Create a visual mental image. Think forward 5 years, 10 years' time, 5 years' time. Create that plan and visualize it. Because he says, if you can't see it and you can't understand what it is, you can't get there. Now, he says that the biggest obstacle to achieving goals is self-limiting belief. I used to have a lot of these myself. I used to think being northern from a working class background was going to impact me. I used to think that XYZ is the reason that I didn't have different things. And this book says that those self-limiting beliefs are just that, self-limiting. So you can choose to remove them. Remove them out of your life. Don't choose to believe them anymore. Imagine that your brain is lying to you. It's not that. And imagine you can do and have and be whatever you want. So a couple of questions that he asks you to think about is, if your life was perfect in 5 years' time, where would you be? If your life was perfect in 5 years' time, what would you be doing? Who would you be around? What would your day-to-day life consist of? Would you be a public speaker? Would you be with loved ones? Would you be on your own? What would that look like for you? Think about it. Picture that goal and start creating and manifesting that future. If you were on top of your skills, what skills would they be? What would the future you need to know to be where they are? Do you have the skills? Do you need to learn more skills? Are there things that you can do to improve where you are? Think about that. Because then you can start doing the daily actions to get there, step by step. Ask the question, how can you? Not if. How can you get there? Not if. Also, this process of positive thinking makes you create bigger goals that are more worthy of you achieving, worthy of you working on them for years of your time. And by feeling positive, we set bigger goals. We feel better, and it's a continuous self-reinforcing cycle upwards. No, that's better. So in the book, Brian Tracy said that there are 5 levels to personality. Now imagine these are in 5 rings going inwards. So imagine 5 concentric circles with your values in the middle. Values are at the core of who you are and what you believe. He says that your values determine your beliefs. What you feel inside determines what you actually believe. Then he says what you believe determines your expectations. What you believe, you then start to expect it. If you expect life to be negative, it will be negative. You expect it to be good. If you expect good things to happen, they will. So we might as well try and expect more, expect better, be positive. He says there are 5 levels to personality. There is values, which is at the core. What are my values? What are your core values? Now, if you don't know that, don't worry. There's time to figure it out. I'm in the process of working out what my values are. Next, your values determine your beliefs. What do you think is going to happen? Or what do you believe in your heart? Then what you believe in your heart is what you see and what you start to expect when you look out. What do you expect? This leads to a positive mental attitude and then finally expectation. And if you expect and you're positive and you have these values, apparently, this is what creates your personality. So think about your personality. What does it say about you? What are your values? Where could you make adjustments? Do you have the right beliefs? Do you expect? What do you expect to happen? If you expect negative things to happen, could you make any changes in your beliefs and values to maybe help you there? He says when our actions on the outside are congruent with what we believe in our heart, we are going to be happier. And this is also like a topic called cognitive dissonance, which is where you're not and there is cognitive dissonance, which is the difference between what you're doing and who you are when it's not aligned. Now, I've had a couple of examples of this, and sometimes you need a friend. Sometimes it'd be a YouTube channel like this that you can look at and understand, why am I not happy? Maybe it's because I'm not doing what I want to do. Think about that. Are you doing what you want to do? And if you're not, could you make any changes to do more of what you want to do? Step by step. Apparently, a guy called Emmett Fox said, talked about self-discovery and the secret of self-discovery. What would you want to be, have, and do? In the dream situation, what would you want to be? What would you want to have? What would you want to do? What would you want to be famous for? What would you like people to say about you when you're gone? That's a deep one for me. What kind of reputation do you have? What kind of reputation do you want? What could you do today to move you towards that future state? If you were a completely excellent person, what would you do? Now, when you think about what you want to be, have, and do, and how you want to achieve it, the book talks about something called Occam's razor, which is normally the most direct route from point A to point B in the simplest steps is the way to go. So think about what you want to achieve. Think about what would you need to do to achieve those things. Simply, if you had to write down 10 behaviors to achieve what you'd like to achieve, what would they be? Think about them, maybe write them down, and just the process of writing them down will apparently get you more likely to achieve and meet those goals. So one of the things that the book talks about is maybe write yourself goals, a couple of goals. Now ask yourself questions about those goals. What would you need to do to achieve those goals? What skills would you need to have to get to be the person that could achieve those goals? And just by writing them down, it helps you understand what you need to do on a day-to-day basis to get what you want and to achieve those goals. So in 1905, a guy called Dr. William James from Harvard said that the most amazing thing about this generation, he said, is that they discovered that if they change their internal beliefs, they'll change their external reality. So it's not that you believe what you see what you believe. What do you believe? And that is what you're going to start to see. Now, if you see negativity and you see all this kind of stuff, that's what you'll see. Could you flip it? Could you be more positive? Could you change the way that you're thinking? Is it possible? How? How could you do that? What could you do? So there's a really interesting quote, and it says, if you believe you can, and if you believe you can't, the good news is you're right. So I stopped drinking for about 6 months, just while I've been dealing with some life situations. It's the longest I've ever gone not drinking. I'm going to do a separate video on it. But the really interesting point is I thought this was an impossible task for me. I didn't think I'd be able to socialise without it. It's just so ingrained in the culture that I come from. And the other day, a guy came up to me and he said exactly what I used to think. He said, I could never go to a social event and not drink. That's exactly what I said to one of my friends a couple of years ago. And now I'm in the situation where I'm doing what I said I could never imagine. So are there things that you think you could never do? And perhaps it's time to start questioning those beliefs. Maybe you could. Now, one of the nice points that I like about this book, he says, beliefs are all learned. You never see a negative baby. I like that. You never see a negative baby. All beliefs are learned. So the question is, what do you believe? Do you believe good things are going to happen to you? Do you believe the world's a negative place? Because whatever you believe, you will see. So maybe it's time to start changing the negative reinforcement if you have negative thoughts and start to think more positively. Because if you become what you think about most of the time, why don't we start to think about more positivity? And things that we want, not things that we don't want. The zero-based thinking is when you think, knowing what I know now, is there anything that I would change, not start, or do differently again? And when you do that, it allows you to realize what could be holding you back. What behavior would you never start if you knew what it was going to do to you? Knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would not do today that you did earlier? Think about that, and now think about your current situation and ask yourself, is there anything that I'm doing now, if I knew exactly how it would pan out, I would never have done it, never have got into it in the first place? And if there are those situations, then you can start to think about maybe changing them or removing them. A big one for me was smoking. I've now quit smoking, and By zero basing these situations, you can say, okay, what am I doing now that's not helping? What am I doing now that I thought was going to be good, turned out to be bad? In the fullness of time, it says that more or less 70% of all of our decisions will turn out to be wrong. So we have to be ready to pivot. We have to be ready to make adjustments, and we have to be ready to decide on alternative paths that are different to what we originally predicted. Sticking to our guns might have been a, seemingly good approach, but if we zero base these conversations, which means if the behavior is turned bad, where it used to be good, zero base it, maybe it's time to stop it, remove it, and change that side, no matter how painful it might be. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be uploading the next episode in this series about goals tomorrow at 6 p.m. So stay tuned and let me know what you think.